When it comes to being a teacher, what do you think to this? As a teacher that's held up a placard on her own Instagram page, I hasten to add, I'm going to try and show you it on the screen if I can. It basically said, the only good Tory, there you go, I mean, if you can read that, well done, because it looks like it's been scrawled by a kid, but that's probably because it has been. It's one of her students, apparently, that says, the only good Tory is a dead Tory, and the only good Lib Dem is a dead Lib Dem. This teacher put it up on her Instagram and said, student of the week goes to the ledge who made me and fellow teacher this placard. This same teacher has made very disparaging comments about the Tories in the past. And it just got me thinking, right, if you take a job in the public sector, whether you're a teacher or a nurse or whatever, quite frankly, do you think that you should have to be politically impartial when A, doing your job, or B, representing your job in public? Because I do. What do you think?
I think you have to separate those two things. What is representing your job in public is a big and complex question.
No, it's not. It's simple.
At a school...
No, hang on, it's simple. If you're a teacher and you're going to go and stand on a picket line, i.e. you're representing your trade, and you're going to hold placards like that, that's what I mean. OK,
fine. So, I mean, if she's... As a teacher, she has every right to a political life outside of the school. Inside of the school, her job is to teach all of the pupils, whatever their politics. If you are teaching literature, sociology, politics itself, economics, there are competing theories that they should be taught in the most neutral terms so that kids can then look at them and make up their own minds. Kids will come in with all sorts of influences, parents who vote different ways, and in the same way that anyone who walks through the doors of the hospital, no matter what they vote, don't vote at all, never voted in their life, everyone should get the same treatment. I really don't like this kind of sloganeering, not least because as someone who is very left-wing, very socialist, I think it's deeply, deeply unhelpful to the left-wing cause. I do not believe that we should be wishing death on our political opponents. I think we should want to beat them at the ballot box, and that's as far as we should want to go.
Karen says it's shocking. This is why idiots attack and kill MPs. Ed in Liverpool, I think you make a very good point. You say, can you imagine if anyone held up a sign like that saying, for example, the only good, I don't know, pick whatever you want to insert here. The only good Muslim is a dead one. The only good Christian is a dead one. The only good anything is a dead one. If you wrote a sign like that at all, I suspect, rightly so, by the way, you'd probably be arrested. But yet, when it comes to political difference, it seems to be OK. Strange. Toby?
Yeah, well, I think I disagree with you on this, Michelle, because it comes up a lot at the Free Speech Union. Companies, bosses want to apply workplace policies about what you can and can't say in the workplace, what you can and can't say on social media, to people's private lives. So, for instance, at the Free Speech Union, we represented a West Midlands train driver who was sacked for gross misconduct because he said on his personal Facebook account after Boris declared Freedom Day, July 19th, 2021, thank God the pubs are reopening. I didn't want to live in a Muslim, alcohol-free caliphate for the rest of my life. So that was interpreted by a colleague as Islamophobic. A complaint was made and he was dismissed for gross misconduct, even though he'd said it out of office hours, outside the workplace, on a private Facebook account. Now, you can say that this is different because the teacher was actually obviously a teacher and representing her profession when she was holding up this sign. But I think it has to be a hard and fast rule. Those rules apply inside the workplace during office hours, but not outside the workplace, because if you say you're representing your profession, or people will know that you work as a teacher at this particular school, that's a slippery slope. That can almost always be dredged up as a reason to police your speech outside the workplace. I think the more worrying thing about this is that she was holding up a placard made by a student. And that suggests, and celebrating the fact that that student had made that placard, and that suggests that she's unaware of her responsibility under the 1996 Education Act to teach about politics in a balanced and impartial way. I think a lot of teachers aren't aware of that. They'll happily denounce the Tories or denounce the government in class when they're teaching about, racism or gender or whatever it might be. They'll do it in a very partisan, politically biased way, unaware that they have an obligation not to indoctrinate indoctrinate their children, but to let them make up their own minds about contentious political issues. That, to me, is the worrying thing about this, not the fact that she was holding up the sign.
Yeah, see, but where would you draw the line? Or, in fact, would you draw the line? So my viewer then, Ed, just said, for example, if she was stood there holding up a sign saying the only good Muslim is a dead one, the only good Christian is a dead one, the only good Jew is a dead one, whatever, there would be trouble.
Yeah, I think that there would be trouble then, because that could conceivably be against the law. That could be an incitement to racial hatred, stirring up hatred against someone on the basis of their skin colour. This is slightly different. It's not against the law to stir up hatred against someone because of their political beliefs. It might be in due course, but it isn't at the moment.
But I thought the whole hate crime thing, which I think is odd, you know, it goes too far if you ask me, but notwithstanding that, to stand there and say the only good talk, because what I feel like a little bit, as long as you're saying the only good, for example, Tory is a dead one, as long as you're criticising the Tories, then you can kind of get away with it. That's how I feel the sentiment is in society, and I think that is incredibly wrong.
But beyond religion, ideology isn't a protected characteristic, so it's not covered under the hate crime laws and under the Equalities Act.
Religion or belief is, but I'm not sure this would fall under that heading. I think... I don't think anyone should be punished for expressing hatred. I mean, it's not a particularly attractive human emotion, but, you know, it's perfectly acceptable, I think, to hate certain things, even to hate certain people. I don't see why that should be a crime or why we should be so worried about it.
I think if you're a public servant, if you like, so if you work in the public sector and you are representing your role, and you'll say, well, what do you mean representing your role? For example, I don't know, if you're going to a teachers' convention, if you're going to a picket line, if you're going to a teachers' training society, whatever you do, and you're there for one reason and one reason only, which is your occupation, then you shouldn't be making statements that are politically biased, politically motivated, because then it's like you and I disagreed before. I remember this, that nurse that went on telly and she was saying about Tories, should they be resuscitated? And she got fired, I think, for going on television, not for that statement, if I remember rightly. And I think that you were saying, because I was saying she should lose her job for that. And I think, if I remember rightly, you were saying that she shouldn't.
Yes, I think that's right. We did disagree about that. I mean, I think in this instance, if you were to prohibit a teacher, because they're a teacher, from engaging in politically partisan behaviour of this kind, wouldn't that prevent them from striking? I mean, after all, we know that what these strikes are really about are trying to undermine confidence in the government, to try and make sure Labour's elected next time. I mean, the fact is that because she held up this sign, the veil is whisked aside. It's obvious that it's motivated by partisan hatred of the Tories and not because there's a genuine cost of living crisis amongst the teaching profession. So in a way, it's been helpful that she's been allowed to reveal the true motives of the strikers in that way.
All right, then, so I'll concede. Maybe she shouldn't get a criminal record. I'll concede on that. But should she lose a job, though, briefly, yes or no?
No.
Look what I'm dealing with, everybody. Look at what I have to deal with on a daily basis.